So today on Off the Fields, we're going to be talking about the impact of sexuality in male-dominated sports. Now, this topic is sensitive, as we all know, to many people because we have to talk about LGBTQ, trans women, and how there's a connectivity in the sports world outside of them just competing in male-dominated sports spaces or in women's sports. So, Harris, I know you were writing about this earlier, but recently we saw like Jimmy Butler at Media Day for Miami Heat, and he had his hair straightened out, blow dried, silk pressed. I don't know what.
Yeah, it was a 4C silk press bob. That's what it was.
Right. And I mean, the only reason why people are laughing because obviously that's like kind of a woman's hairstyle, right? But off the rip though, let's just say people are judging him, saying that he's gay off the rip just because of his hair. Why do you think that is? Because I didn't know that hair identifies somebody's sexuality like that. I mean, what do you think?
Unfortunately, in society, that's what it has come to. It doesn't have that negative stigma for everyone. Cat Williams has always, had that straight,
Yeah,
blow it out, whatever
exactly.
you want to call it. Snoop Dogg has had it too. So it's unfortunate that, Jimmy Butler is kind of getting the short end of the stick here, but it's not the first time that people had said that about Jimmy, just based off his hair. I know last season when he came out with the dreads, some thought that it kind of, he exuded a new demeanor,
Mm-hmm.
which of course still does not mean that someone's gay just because they have long hair or dreads or, weave. That's absurd. So to see that, I mean, well, first of all, for those who hasn't seen his hair, you have to go see it because it is without a doubt something to see. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
Um, I personally picked up emo vibes more than sexuality, especially um being complimented with his piercings. So I definitely saw that. And then too, he had came out in a press conference and said he's in his emo stage.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's that. But it's we live in a society where what you wear does determine your sexuality. I'm not saying it's right.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the time of day in which we do live in. And that's with so many things, not even just with sports, but with so many things outside of sports as well.
Yeah. So, like for instance, I know Dennis Rodman, right? He's been a huge advocate for LGBTQ. He goes to all the parades and everything. And he cross dresses. He's not afraid to
Yeah.
show that side of him. He's been showing that side of him. And when he does it, I don't think he gets the same backlash as
Now he doesn't, but I think early in his career he definitely did.
yeah.
And I think over time people now realize that he's in some way almost like a prince, just someone who I guess likes a certain style and doesn't really care what anyone has to say about it. Because I think it's been proven that, Dennis Rodman is a supporter of the community. He may not be involved, he might not be a member, but
Mhm.
he's proven that he is a supporter, because he has definitely gotten his fair share of
Yeah.
rumors and negative naysayers early in his career. But I think over time people just realize that's Dennis, and I think that people are gonna have to do the same here with Butler. They're just gonna have to
Yeah.
realize that's Butler. He's a character within himself.
Yeah, and I think that the more that you embrace your true self, be your true self. Look at Dennis Rodman. It took him years, for people just to accept his style and sense of fashion. Because some people are considering it fashionable because now, you have what was also like it's not a sport, but say like the hip hop culture, right? You have a lot of rappers who have now become more in touch with wearing women's clothing pieces, not necessarily like meaning that they're gay, but their stylist is saying this is what's in, so wear this, what I'm saying? But I don't think that, like Little Wayne, for example. right? That's like one of the hardest rappers that there was, you know what I'm saying? And that they're not necessarily still is, but whatever. Whoever thinks that he still is the hardest rapper, okay, yeah, whatever. But as far as how he dresses and stuff like that, okay, people were like, why is he wearing a skirt? You know, like the long, like a kilt, you know, skirts and whatnot. And then same thing like with Future when he started wearing like women's cardigans and stuff like that. Well, you see athletes, you know, when they dress up for game day, they come in dressed from head to toe. I mean, they're just sharp. And some of the things that they wear, it's not always masculine. It may be a little bit more fitted and maybe a little bit more, you know, cut differently. And so I think that, you know, we're just at a time where fashion has definitely had an impact in sports in ways where athletes are more comfortable with dressing how they want. So if you go ahead, continue to dress how you want, in the end, in the longevity, people will start to say that's just his style.
But then let me ask you this though, because I find it so interesting. It reminds me, if I'm not mistaken, Russell Westbrook. Remember
Mhm.
when he wore the white cardigan with the grayish long plaid skirt?
Yes, I do
It
remember
makes me
that.
think there's a couple things because first and foremost, you did kind of mention how the stylists see that it's a fad, it's in, but at the same time, if it's not truly them, like if it's not their style, something
Mhm.
that they're into, would you say it's almost like in a way like I don't know how to put this, but like
Pushing a narrative or an identity on them, or
well, no, it's just, you know, because sometimes a lot of these athletes or these very masculine athletes, almost like Harry Styles, they get praise, you know? It's
mhm.
almost like when Harry Styles wore these flamboyant outfits, people were praising him and saying,
Yeah,
"Oh, look at him, he's wearing he's a pioneer, he's embracing, you know, his sensitive side, something that most men don't do."
right.
But you got to realize that gay men do this on a daily.
Hmm.
It's nothing new for them,
Right.
but they get terrorized for it. While people like Harry Styles, like Russell Westbrook,
Hmm.
like Usher, who just last night wore a kilted skirt in Paris, they were getting praised for it. This is dope. Oh, bro, like this is groundbreaking. And so it kind of creates like a double standard because you praise these athletes or these hyper masculine guys for doing things like this, but then you shun those who aren't, straight, who might be gay, for dressing like this. So, it just makes me think that because you really did hit a good point. You said that a lot of them wear these
Hmm.
outfits because it's something that's encouraged by the stylist because their stylist knows fashion and they know what's in. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, it makes you realize, well, are they like, I don't want to say almost putting on an act, but it's almost like, people who do things for likes, or like for, I don't want to say attention, but for the fad of it, because you have those who live like this on a daily basis, who
Hmm.
aren't celebrities, who don't get the praise for it.
Hmm.
Um, and then you have people like, Russell and
Hmm.
all these other sports figures who kind of double and dabble,
Hmm.
paint their nails like Caleb Williams, and it's groundbreaking. And so,
Right.
breaking the standards. So
Yeah.
it just made me think.
And it's just something that I think, in a way, I think that, not saying that, I think it just has something to do with being normalized. We're trying to normalize some things that I think maybe more athletes want to paint their nails. We don't know, but it's just that if you start to do something that's trending, they know they have the platform, they know they have the power, they know that people are going to, be inspired by their fashion ideas and choices. So if they do it, then it's something that could be normalized. But what hasn't been normalized is, not all athletes have decided to come out of the closet. You have many athletes that are still on the DL. And why? Well, I'll list the reasons why. I think many of them stay on the down low because one, you have increased chances of like being released or traded unexpectedly. I mean, don't be surprised that if you do decide to come out, these things start to happen. Things start to change. People start to change. People start to act different. Um, so I think that's part of it. I think that, reduced playtime, your playtime gets cut. I think that has something to do with it. And I think that that's the fear about coming out earlier on in your career, right? A lot of football players in the NFL and a lot of basketball players in the NBA, a lot of professional athletes and other male dominated sports, they decide to come out in the latter years. That's the historical part. They come out in the latter years of their career, when they know maybe that they're coming to an end. They've come to peace with themselves, that I'm at a point in my life that I've reached, that I've dealt with this long enough that I can come out. But some of the reasons are reduced playtime, getting cut from the team, losing money, losing endorsements.
Yeah.
This happened already in the NFL. Somebody, was afraid that basically if they came out, that they would lose endorsements. They would lose companies who they had deals with. So that's also a fear. And unfortunately, that is still the case today. And, a lot of athletes who are on the DL, I would say a lot of them are Black, African American, even though there are some that are, non-Black, but within our community, there are a lot of people on the DL. And we know a lot of that has to do with religion, that has to do with upbringing, that has to do with, cultural societal norms, that we're supposed to live up to. They're supposed to live up to as a professional athlete. But the athlete that I wanted to touch on, who actually, they thought that they were going to lose some money. It was like an athlete basically that Dennis Rodman said that he knows that the league made him retire. So that's another fear of coming out. People who are on the DL, their fear is that if they come out, I think this just happened in the NFL too. You can retire, you know what I'm saying? But it's different if the truth is that they really made you retire because you came out because of your sexuality. And that's the problem. That's the underlying problem that's not being acknowledged, because that's really what happens. A lot of them are forced to retire. Like, let's say Carl Nassib, right? We don't know if he really wanted to retire. He played in the NFL for 7 seasons. But it's just funny to me how he recently came out and now he's retiring shortly after he came out. I mean, shortly, not as in months, but yeah, a couple years, came out, what, 2 years ago? I mean, that's fine, but still, for me, it's connected to that. It's connected to, that's why a lot of these players are afraid to come out, because of stuff like this. And if that's the case, then these big sports organizations that are male dominated, they're not really for inclusiveness. They're not for diversity. And even though they have pride nights and pride events, they're not really for it. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we knew that the leagues weren't for inclusivity because they still deal with racist issues. So
Yeah.
let's start there. I mean, if you don't expect them to be inclusive at all, if they still, have team owners that are wildly and pridefully, still making racist remarks.
Yeah.
So let's, so that's one. I think this topic can be tackled from a various perspectives. First and foremost, I don't think society in general has made it pretty much welcoming, for anyone to come out, especially maybe like a man, I would say. I don't think society has made it comfortable. So with that being said, you can't expect, the league, to be any better, because I think what people kind of fail to realize is that society shapes just about everything around us. Society shapes government laws, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that the NFL or the NBA can't take the initiative to go against what society says. Of course they can, and of course they should, in many ways, more than one. But I think that if society has made it better and easier for these guys to live their true selves, then we wouldn't have this issue in the NFL or the NBA. If you didn't have laws, again, certain states are still, living, what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
it's so much more complex, but, even in terms of like, you mentioned how like black men, that they're the highest percentage of, DL men, well, we also know that society alone makes black men live and women live a certain way that is so drastically different from every other racial group.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, if I'm not mistaken, I believe last week I even used the example how, black women, are always have to be seen as strong and tough,
Yeah.
but we also know that those are words that society has deemed to be masculine.
Yeah.
And therefore, society has, in many ways, more than one, try to deem black women as being masculine people.
Right.
That's unfair. And the
Like
same can
Serena.
be
Just
said
think
about
about
black
her
men.
image. Yeah.
Black men, they're always, it's like they have to be super, super masculine, or they have to be hyper masculine in order to be normal. And anything outside of that is seen as feminine, you know,
Mm-hmm.
being a gymnast, being black and being black and competing in the sport of gymnastics, that was an attack on my masculinity
Mm-hmm.
within society and within the black community, because I played a sport that wasn't so traditionally masculine, or a sport that a lot of black men played. I was already going against the grain, and I was already made to feel opposite, you
Right.
know, um, and indifferent. And so, and again, these are things that like I've experienced being as young as 5 and 6 and 7 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
already at a young age, it's like I'm taught that if I don't act a certain way, if I don't present myself in a certain way, I'm automatically categorized, with this group.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's fair for black men to have to live through. And I think that, society has put all these super masculine pressures on black men that when they do things like straighten their hair, oh, he's gay, you
Right.
know. But when a white man does it, and let's be honest, when they do it, they don't, it's again, look at Harry Styles, look at the way he dresses,
Right.
you know. I mean, he's on the cover of Mag. He literally was praised for his metrosexual type of dressing,
Mm-hmm.
but you see people like, Russell Westbrook, or people like Jimmy Butler, who dons, new hairstyle, it's, oh, he's doing too much, or bro, that's a little, that's a little, it's just, it's a double standard that as black men, you have to live, that you live through, that other racial groups don't. And because of it, I think that it kind of puts the pressure on black men to possibly not be their true selves. And because of it, they kind of live,
Mm-hmm.
they're more prone to living a DL life rather than just being out and open, I guess.
Yeah,
But
but then when we look at players like I was just telling you about the Colorado State football player. So nobody, I don't think anybody knows that, he's gay, but the fact that he came out in the 8th grade as a black athlete, as a black football player, knowing he wanted to continue his football career in high school and in college, and I'm sure he wants to go to the NFL. Kennedy McDowell came out in the 8th grade. He's been successful in football over the years.
what
Um,
year is he in school?
I believe that he is a junior.
Okay.
He's either a sophomore or a junior. But
Okay. So he's about like 19, 20.
yeah, and
Okay.
the thing is that you know he knows that football can be very homophobic, which it still is. But there are more athletes, like the younger athletes are coming out, right? And they're setting the precedent. Even though the NFL players who have already come out and like Dave Copay and um, some of the older football players, this is different because it just goes to show you like Colorado State was just on prime time TV, right? For the versus Colorado University, right? Nobody mentioned this kid's sexuality in the game, right? But people will now learn about that, right? And then, you have that he's at a PWI, let's say that, right? He's not at a historically black university like Byron Perkins, right? Byron Perkins comes out, right? His situation was a little bit more celebratory, if you ask me, because you had somebody like Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade reach out to him. They put him in a movie, gave him a role. Of course, he played a role as a straight guy, you know what I'm saying? But the fact is, he was embraced. He was a little bit more embraced. And I wonder, if that's because he's in college. College is where a lot of students find themselves, find their true selves, or decide to actually come out. Some, I would say that's, we're starting to see a rise in that. I would say it's where a lot of athletes are coming out in college. People who are younger than us, I would say they have. And I think that, it's to basically set the precedent. And it's also to set the platform for other athletes who are also struggling, because we both know that there are younger and younger athletes in middle school and stuff like that. And these kids are already identifying as gay,
Yeah.
as pan, as ace, as whatever. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that they're doing that, that's something that the sports world is they're not ready to adapt to children doing that. But once you're in college and you're 18, it's a little bit different. But at the same time, it's not. Why? Because then race comes into play. But how did the Black community react to when learning about Kennedy McDowell? Well, they didn't learn about them because he was already out. He already decided to come out. Byron Perkins, he came out. I think it was embraced a little bit more. Then you have in the NFL, a coach came out, right? Coach Kevin Maxen from the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is like a strength coach. I mean, this guy, obviously, he's been in football, around football players for a long time. And when he decided to come out as a coach, everybody says it's in their embrace, right? They have support. You know what I'm saying? But what really happens? What are the changes that they go through? It happens in the upper ranks with the execs, with HR, people who make the decisions, the hiring and the firing. Do they want that type of publicity attached to the organization? I think that's what it comes down to. And I think the answer is no. I think it's no. I don't think they want the association, even though they support it. They may support it financially, doing some donations, maybe putting on an event for some of the employees. But these execs who are actually secretly on the down low as well, they're not being true to themselves. Why? It's still that stigma of just the association. And I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? You had somebody like Lamar Odom at one point who was dating a beautiful trans model. Yeah. You have somebody like Caleb Thompson from the Golden State Warriors. There were rumors that, he was following a trans model and, but what is so negative about that? What is so negative about what you're attractive to? You know what I'm saying? How do we, because it's not just the LGBTQ community, there's also trans women. There's a connection there. You were telling me, believe it or not, a lot of professional athletes, men, are attracted to trans women, right? We know this. We know. What is your take on that? We were talking about this. Like, yes. Seriously, because people need to know. Like, there is just
Well, for those that don't know, I won't speak on this, but what I will say is, who is that singer? Her name's Aubrey, I think. Aubrey, she wasn't in the Pussycat Dolls.
from
She
City
said
Group.
she said something on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
So if anyone is watching, just go to Twitter, type in Aubrey podcast, go to Google, type in Aubrey podcast, and it will surely come up. And I think she says absolutely everything that I think there is that needs to be said in less than 30 seconds. And she's speaking from experience. So I believe that at that.
Yeah, like
Because
I'm telling you, like with the
but
NBA, they had that girl, Riley Knox. She performed back in 2020 for the halftime show at the Atlanta Hawks game and the Washington Wizards game. She's a transgender performer, but she's beautiful and she impersonates Beyonce. But they wanted her there to perform. Why? If you're not for me,
I
that's
mean, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. There's I ain't gonna argue against that. Um,
Yeah.
it's just, it's going back to the NFL because there was just something that you said that made me think. You said something like these execs.
Mm-hmm.
You it says something, and I should have noted it. But what I will say is,
Mm-hmm.
about the NFL specifically,
Mm-hmm.
it's a it's a money business.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because everything is strategic. And I don't think people realize how strategic things are in the sport. I mean, in this world, but especially in the sports world. And
It
you
is.
have experience in broadcasting. I have experience in broadcasting. I was explaining this to my mom one time, and I said, when you watch a football game,
Mm-hmm.
who do you see as sideline reporters? You see women.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you see as analysts? You will see men.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly former NFL Hall of Famers or NFL players.
Mm-hmm.
If not players, longtime correspondents who have studied the game of football for years.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason why you see women on the screen on the sideline and not men.
Mm-hmm.
And to put it in simple terms, the largest audience, the biggest group of people that watch it and support the NFL is men.
Right.
Men, middle-aged men.
Mm-hmm.
So these production companies, they purposely hire
Mm-hmm.
women,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful women as sideline reporters.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I remember I went for a job interview with one large production company. I won't name them, but in the interview they said they did say, I pretty much, have the whole package, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, no man must watch another man interviewing, on TV. And at the time, I didn't get what they were saying, and I kind of took that as a personal dig.
Right.
But later on, I realized exactly what they meant. It's a money business, and just like I hate to say it, but just like sometimes women aren't seen as women and they're kind of seen as objects.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost how, in large part, um,
Yeah.
you know,
How it is. Yeah. Yeah.
how it is, on the field, you
Yeah.
know. And even when we talk about the NBA, when you look at the sideline reporters, who do you see? Women.
Yeah.
It's like this is so like execs. So I say all of this to say that execs do what they have to do to get and keep money, and what that means is, keeping gay men, LGBTQ out of the picture
Mm-hmm.
because that's not going to cause money revenue. That's going to cause a divide. Something that they're not ready for. Just like
Yeah.
they sweep the racism problems underneath the rug, they will surely sweep any LG, whatever problems that they don't want anything to stop the money flow. And I think I don't mean to say that the LGBTQ will stop the money flow, but what I am saying is that making that inclusive would draw people away. And the last thing they want to do is draw their audience away. Who's their audience? Men.
Yeah.
We all know, what I'm saying? Like we all know, you know, men in large parts are the biggest they are the biggest antagonizers when it comes to the LGBTQ. I'm not saying that women don't and antagonize too, but
Mm-hmm.
when you do look at a lot of these crimes, they're
Mm-hmm.
committed by men.
Yeah. Like I know that Reggie Bullock, right? We briefly talked about him, and when we were talking about him, I know that I was telling you like about his sister. She was trans, but he's an active NBA player, right? And she died back in I believe it was 2016. She was stabbed to death, you know, in West Baltimore. She was only 26 years old, but ever since then, you know, Reggie has been an advocate for Black trans women. Okay. He understands that there is a target group when it comes to the killing and the crimes committed by white men who are, supposedly just so against it. You know what I'm saying? Some of those people who are so against it are actually into it and actually are for it. I think that sometimes they just put on a shield, like a face, just to have this mask to be something that they're not according to society. You know what I'm saying? But that's one thing that, you know, somebody like her name was Mia Henderson. So Mia Henderson obviously lived in her truth, no matter what others thought. And when you do that, there comes with risk. So for Reggie Bullock to continue to be an advocate for it and attend events for it, just like Dwayne Wade being an advocate for it as well. The LGBTQ community on behalf of his daughter, Magic Johnson, recently just received a Elizabeth Taylor Award at an AIDS gala. And, you know, in the speech, he was thanking his son and his wife for being a support system. And in the speech, he said, EJ, stand up, continue to live in your truth, son. Continue to live in your truth. Be who you are. Why? There are always other people who need that inspiration, that inspiration that gives them the courage to do the same thing, maybe. You know what I'm saying? And I think that the more athletes in male dominated sports like the NBA and the NFL, to me, I feel like the NBA is a little bit more supportive of members of the LGBTQ community as far as when it comes to their athletes. I think they're a little bit more supportive compared to like the hockey league and things of that nature. Somebody who's a part of the NBA committee when it comes to LGBTQ is Jason Collins, the first NBA player to come out openly. And he said that they're supportive of it. They're behind it. They're all for it and stuff like that. I mean, that's what they say. Why not believe Jason Collins? You know what I'm saying? But when, it comes to the NFL, it's still very homophobic. And I think that that's sad because, it's not fair that you should be judged based on your sexual orientation, how you wear your hair, how you paint your nails, you know what I'm saying? And who you're attracted to. Who you're attracted to outside of work has nothing to do with how you perform at work.
Yeah.
If you're making buckets and if you're winning games, that's all that matters to them, right? That's the money part, right? But then there's the politics part. It's politics as well, along with the money. And what comes with politics is strategy and stuff like that. So, yeah, a lot of the stuff is strategized based on politics and money. And I know that Adam Silver one time, he was talking about a pride event that he, basically didn't want to have the pride event in Utah or something like that because the voting was going on and they didn't want to sway the decision. And so it's just all very calculated, but it's also very like manipulative. You know what I'm saying? And it's not fair that Dwayne Wade actually had to leave Miami because of the treatment he was receiving from his daughter. Even the way Dwayne Wade is now starting to dress, people are like just criticizing him left and right. And it's actually very sad because
Where does he reside now?
um I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he
Okay.
resides now. I want to say in California,
Okay,
but
that's what I was thinking too.
I think that, you know, um him taking a stance is going to make a difference and it's going to open up the doors for more athletes to continue to be comfortable in their own skin. Um, you know, like somebody like Magic Johnson who's dealing with that, who's dealt with that for some time with their son EJ. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to understand that these athletes know they have a platform to help go ahead and create change and stuff like that. But it's up to us in the Black community to be supportive and stuff like that. We do need to support each other more when it comes to sexuality, I think, because some athletes literally deal with depression. They deal with, being suicidal. It's a lot of pressure and it's hard to deal with something like that when you're at work and it affects your work and you're worried about what they're going to say and losing money. And that's really difficult. What advice would you give an athlete who's actually struggling right now, maybe?
Um, I mean, I'd suggest first and foremost to draw back. You know, take a step back, pause. Sometimes we just sometimes you can't see clearly when you're in the midst
Mm-hmm.
of it all. So you have to withdraw yourself.
Yeah.
And I think once you withdraw yourself and you're able to really think clearly and find a support group, whether it's a friend, a parent, a therapist, I think then you'll be able to make the proper decisions to move forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that may mean stepping away from your team or your sport. Other times that may mean, excuse me, having a conversation
Mm-hmm.
with your team within your sport. But I would definitely say, um, take a step back and draw back,
Mm-hmm.
because the worst thing you can do is, try to keep pushing, and push on a gas pedal that has no gas. Um, so it's okay to step back. It's okay to draw back from the world and from everything around you, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you can keep going.
Yeah. That's awesome, Paris. I mean, I think a lot of people need to talk about sexuality a lot more. It's something that needs to be more normalized in this type of space. So, guys, I thank you guys for tuning in today to hear this sensitive topic, because I'm sure that it touched a lot of people in different ways and may have rubbed people the wrong way. But either way, something that we're going to continue to talk about. So, thanks for tuning in today. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button, click the notification button down there. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We're pretty much on all of them except Twitter. So all the details will be down below the video. So yeah, have a good day, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, we will.